Thank you for joining us for a Finding God in Video Games Rewind. And depending on when you're listening or watching this, you are probably in one of what I consider the two main seasons of life. There are the seasons of life in which there are new episodes of The Mandalorian, and then there are the seasons in life where there is not. And depending on where you're at in that, you might need something to fill that Mandalorian-less period in your life that you're trying to, and you're looking, you go on Disney Plus and you're like, come on, there's got to be something new, at least a making of featurette of the season, something, but there's nothing. So we have to find something to do in these seasons of life in between seasons of Mandalorian. And if you're a Star Wars fan, like I am, fortunately we have some quality titles that we can leverage. One of the ones that I would highly recommend, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. There's actually a sequel to this coming out very soon. If you haven't already played the first one, it's a great place to start. And I am pleased to report that through the majority of my journey in the shoes of Cal Kestis, the Jedi who has the responsibility of protecting the few remaining Jedi in the universe from the Empire, it's actually a really good journey. Except for the part where I have to slowly reconnect with all of my Force powers. And when I say slowly reconnect, I do mean slowly. This game is yet another example of the amnesiac-style protagonist who conveniently cannot do any of their cool stuff until much, much later in the game. Kind of reminds me of playing Metroid Prime and Samus's power suit that was super cool for the first 4 minutes of the game until it was broken. I had to put it all back together again. So let me give you a frustrating example from my experience with the game. I am a fully fledged Jedi. I have a lightsaber, I have a handful of useful Force skills. I went ahead and unlocked the double-bladed lightsaber on Dathomir, so I'm feeling pretty good about myself, even with the knowledge that I still have a whole lot more Force powers to unlock. I'm mowing down stormtroopers with ease. I can deflect their blaster bolts back at them with moderate accuracy. I'm running along walls. I can push my enemies as well as other objects around using nothing but my mind. I mean, you would think those would be useful enough tools to achieve most of my goals, but unfortunately, in video games with great power comes even greater skill trees. And I am missing something I absolutely need. Apparently, I am missing something called a scomp link. Now, I'm sure you probably have one of those hanging around somewhere in your home, maybe in a junk drawer or something, or in your glove box of your car. You know, I don't even know why we still call them glove boxes. I mean, I don't know who is braining around gloves with them everywhere they go. And not just gloves, but enough that they need a whole compartment of their vehicle in order to store them. I mean, how many gloves do you think you would need today? Okay, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. We were talking about some... Oh, that's that scomp link, that stupid scomp link. I mean, what even is that? All I know is that without it, apparently my little droid companion cannot open any of these beautiful boxes of loot that are scattered all around the level, and I have to keep bypassing them and making a mental note to come back to them later as a result. Now, my problems with this are twofold. First, I know that these boxes must contain some incredibly awesome goodies that I really, really want. Maybe some new gear, some extra lightsaber options. All I know is it must be something really good, or it wouldn't be lying out here in the open in a box I can't open. But that's not the largest cause of my disappointment. What I'm most frustrated about is this means I'm going to have to backtrack at some point and come back all the way through this area again in the future if I ever want to see what's in the box. I don't even know if it'll be worth it, because I have no idea what is actually in the box. It could be some useless skin that I'm not even going to utilize. But if I do want to see it, I'm going to have to wait until I have found this scomp link, repaired my little robot friend, flown all the way back across the galaxy, and then walk to this box and see if it was even worth all of that journey. And oh, did I mention that all of the enemies that I have been fighting respawn, so I have to fight them again. It's not like the level remains cleared. All of this pointless backtracking and walking and extra hacking and slashing just to see if this box holds something that's worth the hassle. And here I am. I'm this powerful Jedi with a lightsaber that can cut through almost anything. But yet, I am stymied right now by whatever locking mechanism is holding this box closed. Apparently, it's lightsaber proof. I guess I've heard of stories of such things, just never thought I'd have to see it in a game. The funny thing is we all get to experience this exact same disappointed adventure in life more times than we care to admit. I mean, how many times If you had a big dream or an outstanding idea or a vision for the future that you're anxious to launch, but that box just won't seem to open. You know this was meant for you. It was destined for you. You feel it in your bones. You see it in your dreams. But no matter how hard you try to make it happen, that box just sits there holding your ambitions inside and ignoring your attempts at progress. But once again, we're in good company. Let's start with this wise nugget that was found in the book of Proverbs. It says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life." Well, we're not dealing with a lack of hope. What we're dealing with is hope deferred, meaning to put something off to a later time or postpone it. Few people have experienced this to the depth of our character study today. Joseph. In Genesis 37, we find the beginnings of this young man in his God-given dreams. It says Joseph had a dream. He told it to his brothers. They hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream which I've dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. And behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf." And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Shall you have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream, told it to his brothers, and said, "Look, I've dreamed another dream. This time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bow down to me." Maybe he should stop sharing some of his dreams. But that's not in the Bible verse. That's just, I'm starting to think it's not going real well. So he told it to his father and his brothers. His father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come down to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him. His father kept the matter in mind. Now, those dreams are certainly not going to make for very comfortable Thanksgiving dinner conversations with the family, that's for certain. There's more to unpack here than we have time to digest, but in synopsis, Joseph received these very large dreams from God, indicating that he had quite the future awaiting him. As the second youngest of his 12 brothers, his position was pretty low on the totem pole. The idea that he would have any level of authority over his older brothers was pretty preposterous, but these dreams pointed to something even bigger than that, a massive destiny that would even have his parents bowing down to him. Big dreams, but with even larger delays ahead. Joseph's journey to dreamland is filled with the worst kind of backtracking, regression. Joseph goes from being the favorite son of his father to a slave, and then from a slave to an imprisoned slave. And all along the way, he experiences delay after delay as his dreams seem farther and farther away from becoming achievable. And I believe many of us experience that same seeming regression. We can see the promised land when we close our eyes, but when we open them, our situations just seems to be getting worse and worse. The vision that we had in our youth is now getting tarnished by graying hair, worn out bodies, piled up debts, health challenges, the daily monotony of just trying to get diapers changed and dinner on the table, and hopefully in that order and not not the diapers on the table and you know what I mean. Life just starts sucking all the hope right out of our eyeballs, making us wonder if those big dreams were ever true to begin with. Now, fortunately, I have some good news for Joseph. With proper application, good news for us as well. Joseph's dreams were not canceled, just deferred. He had a lot of personal growth and skills that he needed to gain prior to ascending to his dream. Skills that could only be forged in the cleansing crucible of the very challenging life that the Lord had placed before him. On the surface, it looked like his visions were simply the stuff of a child's imagination, and it seemed as if he was slogging his way through some very discouraging pathways towards an unmarked grave outside of a prison in Egypt. But God never deviated from his plan for Joseph, which required him to grow underground long before it was time for him to face the sunlight. Much like a flower or a tree growing roots to sustain itself, the backtracking and regression that Joseph experienced was designed to ensure that he had the strength of character and the skill set that he needed to take ownership of the dream that God had placed in him decades before. Now, it may take longer than we desire, but if we remain faithful, eventually we will find our scomp link that will enable us to open every pathway that has been designed for us to walk on. Now, I want to encourage you today that regardless of how many times you find yourself staring at a metaphorical box in life that just won't seem to open, there is a plan. Our loving Father does not give us these dreams to torment us, but to provide us with an awareness that there is something even greater than what we are currently holding that we are continuing to move towards. Joseph probably could have lived a peaceful existence as his father's favorite son if he had never had those dreams. But there was a day coming when a famine would overtake the entire land. And thanks to the seemingly regressive path that Joseph walked, he was the only one in a position to both save his family as well as the entire country from certain disaster. That is what he dreamed of, but it didn't manifest itself until both the external conditions of the world around him, as well as the internal character and the skill tree of Joseph, had reached their full maturity. Now, it can be hard to be patient when you have that fire burning in your belly. Trust me, I'm right there with you. But I can assure you that God's purpose will be gloriously revealed at the exact moment when our preparation is fully aligned with the external need that was chosen for us to fill before we were even conceived. The wait, the backtracking, and the stalling can be incredibly frustrating when you can practically taste the fulfillment of your dreams. But don't lose faith. This is the way.